covering the High Plains with news, weather, and information. From TV23 Studios in Sublette, this is High Plains Today.
Hi everybody, welcome to this special edition of High Plains Today. I'm joined in studio today by Mr. Bud Estes. He is a candidate for the Kansas State Senate District 38, and we're going to talk to him today about all kinds of stuff and maybe more. How are you today, Bud?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good. Good to see you today.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be here.
Now, my biggest question is, now you're currently serving in the Kansas House of Representatives.
Right, the 119th district for Dodge City.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what you get up one day and went, I want to be in the Senate? What made you choose the Senate over leaving the House?
That was a decision.
How'd that?
Because being a representative for Dodge City, where it's one town, one school, one hospital, that is so neat. You don't travel all over the place. You concentrate on that. It's cool. And I really had no thoughts of moving to the Senate. But years ago, where do we start? I was born and raised in Buckland, and went to Buckland High School and went to Fort Hays State. Came back to the family business, which started in 1944. Buckland Tractor and Implement, started by our granddad in 44, and Dad came back after World War II, and then in 1968, after I graduated from college, I came back and went into the John Deere business. And for the next 47 years, I sold green iron, and would manage stores and, part of the family business. But during that time, I also managed to accumulate a large farm. For 25 years, had a large irrigated farm and cattle and horses and llamas and other necessary
llamas.
things. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
That was a money loser.
Okay. All right.
And then during that time too, I was elected mayor of Buckland 6 times. So 14 years I was serving as the mayor of Buckland. And then, so getting back to your other question, when Senator Love decided that he was not going to run because of family deals, and we lose so many of our good young legislators because of that very deal, and you can't blame them. He called me one day and he says, I'm not going to run, and I think with your experiences in Southwest Kansas, being a businessman, being a farmer, being a mayor, familiar with there's 17 towns in this district, 15 of them are small. Most of them have been in our football league or, some point in time. I played against them. My sons did. Now my grandkids are. The trade area from Liberal East, particularly Meade East, is part of our John Deere area. So those towns are very familiar with me, and I'm very familiar with them. So, it's a natural fit. And I thought, it's going to be a lot more work because it was fairly easy in Dodge. So it'll be a little more traveling, but thinking about, representing 70,000 Western Kansas conservative Republicans is something I probably should be doing. And so I felt moved to do that, and I said, okay, I believe I will. He said, I want you to do it, and he says, I'll endorse you and I'll support you. So that was good enough for me.
So in the 38th district, 5 counties now?
I believe that's right.
Okay. And then you talk about 17 communities.
Right.
You've got 15 small ones, but of course the large ones being Liberal and on the southwest corner and Dodge on the northeast corner of it and everything in between.
Yep.
All the way down to Ashland and
it goes, if you go Dodge City, if you go over to Spearville, down to Buckland, down to Ashland, over and up to Mineola, and then down 54 Highway, all those towns, and then back up to Montezuma, and over to Ingalls, Cimarron, and back to Dodge. That
covers it, doesn't it?
That covers it.
Everything in between there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's, like I said, I'm very familiar with a lot of the folks in that area, and I feel really comfortable being able to handle the job for them. And here's another thing that really excites me about this. There's so many Eastern Kansas, particularly Johnson County legislators. They can outvote us anytime they want to. And they come up with some really doozy stuff. So it's terribly important that Western Kansas is represented both in the Senate and the House by people who can bring forth our points. In other words, debate with those guys and show them what those kind of thoughts or proposals they have concerning taxes, concerning education, whatever it is they're thinking up. what that will do to us. Because if we're not capable of getting that message to them, if we don't command their respect, and this is another thing that I really liked about it for the last 3 years, dealing with Democrats, Republicans, both chambers, I've earned respect for those folks and have their respect so that we can converse and we can debate and we can talk about those things, because we've done it this last year. So I feel good about doing that and comfortable. If I didn't, I dang sure wouldn't want to be doing this, because it would be plumb scary. But that's the biggest thing I see. We've got to have people who literally are passionate enough, who have lived it, not just told, well, this is what will happen if they put tax back on farm machinery and junk like that. You know, we've got to be able to point out why it's the way it is and what's going to happen if they change it.
So that, and you're right, you see the biggest hurdle there is having to deal with, whether it's on the House or the Senate side, with that northeastern part of the state, which is so populous now that,
Yeah.
you know, they do carry a lot of votes.
They do, and most of them have never been out here. A few years ago, they had a program where legislators from the East came here and spent some time. I was talking to a former legislator just the other day, and he was telling me about how they used to do that. And I said, man, that is a neat idea. I hope you don't mind if I borrow your idea, because I think that needs to be initiated again. And so if I get back here, hopefully I do, then I'm going to try to promote that, because when you get them out here and they really see it, well, it makes a difference. And I've seen that in Leadership Kansas. I'm in Leadership Kansas, a class of 15, and we had people from all over the state, and we brought them out to Garden and Dodge, and all over the state we went to these meetings together, a week, 3 days a week for, a month for 8 months, I think it was. But when you get those folks out here and they actually see Western Kansas, man, they understand.
Yeah.
So the legislators, it's even more important. We need to get those boys out here so they can actually see what these farms are like and what the ranches are like.
I agree with you on that. All right, hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about some of the stuff that's going on in Topeka and where you're at on all that too, okay?
Okay.
All right, stick around. I'll be back with Bud with more right after this.
You're watching High Plains Today on TV 23 with host Chris Jewell. TV 23's internet service and 4G live streaming provided by United Wireless. Coverage you deserve. Service you expect. United Wireless.
And welcome back. I'm joined by Bud Estes. He is a Senate candidate for District 38 in the Kansas Senate coming up. He's got a primary coming up on August 2nd. All right, we were talking about a little history, and you gave us a little lesson on who Bud Estes is. Now, tell me a little bit about, now you've been in the Kansas House for
3 years.
3 years, okay. Now, I'm sure what kind of experiences have you had up there? Committees and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I served on the Ag Committee, Federal and State, Health and Human Services, and Bank and Insurance. And I was also, 3 years ago, chosen to serve on the JAG Kansas Committee. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's Jobs for American Graduates.
Yes.
And
very good program, by the way.
I'm so, of all the things I've done, this is the most thrilling of all.
Yeah.
We started out with 25 schools, 50 schools, now we're at 62 schools.
Right.
And we help kids who have big challenges to graduation, and our success rate has been 94%. So it's a great program, but I was so thrilled to be on that. Also, well, I'd mentioned I'm in Leadership Kansas, 2015. I served last year on the KDOT Freight Route Committee. What that is we studied planes, trains, and
automobiles, like the movie?
Yep. For several months, we met and studied those things. And basically, it came down to 4-lane highways. And in Southwest Kansas, really, in my estimation, the only reason Southwest Kansas hasn't blossomed is the lack of 4-lane highways. We got rail, we got cheap ground, we got cheap labor, we've got it all except that. Once we get that, I think you're going to see our whole area blossom. So we worked on that, and Highway 54 is a very, very high priority. The 4-lane from Dodge to Garden, very high priority. The 4 lanes from 54 to Dodge to Garden, then the other, that as well. But the main thing, number one, would be the 54, closing up from Pratt to Liberal, and then the Dodge Garden route. But those things will really, really, really help us. And it was a thrill to be serving on that committee. There were only 2 legislators on it, but it went very, very well. Okay, then I serve on for the state of Kansas. I'm a commissioner on the Midwest Interstate Passenger Rail Commission.
That sounds like Amtrak.
Yeah, it's got a lot to do with Amtrak. There's actually 11 states in this.
When you said passenger, I was going, oh, that's got to be Amtrak.
Yep, 11 states in this thing, and of course the rail for us is Amtrak. And that when we started on that, the Amtrak situation was a little bit iffy, and we worked towards that end as well as some other folks, and got that straightened out. Thank goodness. But there's more to it than that, in that the route from Wichita South down to Dallas, that's still a viable deal. Not to replace this one, but
in addition to. Okay,
yeah.
Right.
But then we talk about, and we work on rail problems or situations in Chicago and Minneapolis-Molina, light rail, stuff that doesn't concern us as far as we'll never see it. But it's fascinating when you see that in those cities, people don't even have driver's licenses. They ride the light rail. Anyway, very, very interesting commission, and I love being on that for the state of Kansas.
Let me ask you, we got a couple of minutes, and I know you've been, now the transportation, let's get back to the KDOT stuff.
Okay.
So how do we fix this out here to where we can continue to grow Highway 54? Because that's a big deal out here.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. It's been mentioned by some that I had a lot to do with the problems we've got here. And quite frankly, I wasn't even elected until 13. My first session was 2014. And there's one person that particularly is fond of saying that me and the governor caused this whole problem, okay? Well, I wasn't even there, and she knows this. I wasn't even there when that was passed. I was not part of the conversation, was not part of the debate. Whether I'd have voted for it, well, a lot of good folks did and probably would have. But see, that thing was supposed to have come down in steps. Come down a little bit, leveled out, economy gets used to it, Kansas gets used to it, creates new jobs, whatever, and then goes down again. Well, unfortunately, because of politics and stuff, the thing dropped.
Landslide, didn't it?
It went to the bottom in 1 year. Well, that meant, wow, there's a big challenge to start off with. Everything has to go perfect to make this work. Things didn't go perfect because when I first went up there, we had $700 million in the bank. We were hopeful, in 2014. But right after that, grain prices went in the tank, oil prices went in the tank, cattle prices went in the tank, everything started south. Well, it starts sinking. Pretty soon we don't have $700 million in the bank. Pretty soon we're scurrying, okay? And it's sinking and sinking. So in 15, 25 of conservative Republicans, we actually brought forth legislation to revisit the tax situation. Our thinking was we need to make some adjustments. We need to make some adjustments because we're not keeping up with the sinking. And nobody intended that to happen, and it was nobody's fault it did, but be that as it may, it did. So we need to see about making some adjustments, bring some of this back on, whatever, the LLC, whatever. Only 25 of us did that. So the next year, this year here, we go back again. Last year, the hole was, say, this big that we were trying to, okay. And we didn't get that passed. This year, the hole's this big.
It's bigger, isn't it?
Bigger hole. Okay, and so this time there were 27.
Okay.
27 of us voted or brought forth the legislation, and actually 13 Democrats voted as well. The whole vote was 47 people voted to readdress the tax situation. If we'd had 63 votes, we could have got that done. The governor's office said it's doubtful that he would have vetoed it, and the Senate indicated if we passed it, they would pass it. So we could have headed off some of this problem. So now we went from this, now next year we said, okay guys, when you come back again, the hole's this big.
The hole in the dike keeps getting bigger, doesn't it?
So when we go back next January, everything will be on the table. We'll have to look at everything and do what is right and reasonable. I mean, we've got to get our highway situation back in. We got to make sure our schools are in good shape, and just all the things that goes with it.
Okay. All right, hold that thought, because when we come back, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about how you feel we can fix this in the state of Kansas and where you're at on that. Sound fair?
Sure.
All right, stick around. More with Bud right after this. And welcome back, Bud Estes, Senate candidate, District 38, state of Kansas. We're talking about his upcoming primary election. And when we left, Bud, we were talking about, the committees you were on and talking about things that you see in Topeka. And I just quickly kind of want to go through, you're talking about working with the Democrats and coming up with some ideas to help solve some of the problems, because you said the hole keeps getting bigger in Topeka. Yep. So what are some other things that you think you can help do in Topeka to get this whole mess? Because it's a mess. The state of Kansas is in a hole right now.
Well, that's true, and people like to lay that on the governor, but really a very, very big part of this thing, nobody had any control over. We talked about the sinking grain, cattle, so forth prices. I mean, it was in the Wichita paper just recently that in 2008 to 2014, average farm income, net, Kansas, was over $120,000 per farmer. Now it's $4,500. And so you can see there is a big, big, big problem, because those guys can't buy new trucks and cars and pickup trucks and beds and TVs, and they can't buy new machinery, which means that we can go buy new cars, trucks, and pickup. You see, it just rolls downhill. So it's a big, big, big chunk of it. So we're going to have some help from above. We need some grain prices come up. We need a big thing hurt us too is the oil prices and the sinking. We've lost thousands of jobs across Southwest Kansas in the oil patch, and that's hurting our communities, hurting our people, and it's hurting our income to the state. So those things need to be addressed. But be that as it may, we also realistically are going to have a look at the tax situation. As a Republican, it makes me totally sick to even think about it, but as a realist, that's how we survive in this country. So the tax thing, we can't tax ourselves to prosperity. I mean, we just can't do that. If the government gets super prosperous, the citizens are going to be sucking air. But there's got to be a reasonable approach to this that we determine, we determine what can we cut, what cuts can actually happen, and then determine how much money do we have to get our highways back up and get our things. How much do we need? What cuts can we take? How much did our income improve from here? Now that's left this big old thing over here called taxes. And so it doesn't matter what party you're at, it doesn't matter what you think, we are going to have to face that.
We're going to have to look at the LLC.
Oh,
I mean, because that went from 110,000, like 330,000, just ba-bam overnight once that was.
Yeah, and there were probably more folks that switched to LLC.
Right, right.
I guess I can throw this in. My company is a C Corp. We didn't have any of that. I mean, but be that as it may, and I've been accused of, But anyway, that needs to be looked at again, the fairness of it and so forth and so on. And we've had lots of comments from folks who said, I don't mind paying the taxes. People out of state that are getting money from their farms in Kansas, and they don't pay Kansas tax, they got to pay Colorado tax. And it's even higher than ours. So they're saying, my gosh, I'd rather pay Kansas tax. So, I mean, there's so many twists and turns to this thing that needs to be reconsidered or looked at.
Well, not only that, and you're going to have education financing to deal with again, and you've got CanCare that you're going to have to deal with, and KDOT, and the list just goes on, doesn't it?
It does, and it takes
Why do you want that?
money.
Why do you want all that punishment, Bud?
I don't know. Why did you bring that up?
Well,
no, it's a challenge, but someone's got to do it, and I want to be there as a conservative Republican, putting my 2 cents in, and because we can't get carried away with the tax thing. We know we got to do it, but it needs to be reasonable. It needs to be approached correctly.
Okay. All right. Let's talk now. We got a couple of minutes left. Let's talk a little bit about endorsements.
Very good.
That you've had. Okay.
Yeah, because I am a true conservative Republican, and our area is basically conservative Republican. And so when I say I'm pro-life, which is an easy thing to say, or they can say I'm pro-Second Amendment, you can say all this stuff. You can say you're conservative, but proving it is quite a different deal. And so when I say I'm pro-life, I'm the only candidate in this race that's Kansas for Life endorsed. I'm the only candidate in this race that's NRA A-rated and endorsed. I have Garrett Love's endorsement. I have Southwest Kansas Faith and Families endorsement. Kansas Livestock Association, and Farm Bureau. I mean, these are all organizations that realize that I'm working for Western Kansas and have chosen to endorse me along those lines. And these are mostly conservative type organizations. And those are the things that I value. Quite frankly, that Kansas, or the Faith and Family endorsement, that really got me, of all the endorsements I have.
Okay.
They just don't endorse people, but he did endorse me. So that was fantastic.
All right. Well, I wish you luck coming up August 2nd in the primary.
Yep.
And win or lose, though, I want you to come back and see us. Okay? And especially if you do get back to Topeka, I want you to come back so I can hold your feet to the fire.
Absolutely.
I'll be rough on you next time, all right?
Okay.
All right, bud. Thank you very much for coming by today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thanks for tuning in to this special edition of High Plains Today. We'll see you next time right here.
Keep up to date with the latest information from TV 23 on our Facebook page, KDGL TV.